Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Aaron Gilchrist in Washington. The president trying to downplay a national security blunder after administration officials used the commercial messaging app Signal to discuss highly sensitive military planning. Now, this came to light because the president's national security advisor, Mike Waltz, or someone in his office, inadvertently included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in that text thread. The incident has raised serious questions about the administration's handling of sensitive information, with the Senate's Republican leader now signaling they will investigate this incident. President Trump is standing by Waltz, telling NBC News that he's learned a lesson and he's a good man, while also lashing out at The Atlantic. And moments ago, the president telling reporters during a meeting of his ambassadors that he will be looking into what happened here. He also said that none of what was discussed in that thread was classified.
There was no classified information, as I understand it. It wasn't classified information, so this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience.
We will conduct an investigation, is what you're saying into this.
We'll look into it, sure. I would look into it, sure.
Now, the president also gave his national security advisor the floor during that meeting with the ambassadors, but Waltz did not address the substance of the security lapse here. Instead, he attacked journalists. Now, we should note, according to The Atlantic, highly sensitive information was part of these chats, including, quote, operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratcliffe, who were both part of that Signal thread, testified before the Senate today. They were grilled by Democrats on the security lapse here, and like the president, they also insisted that classified information was not shared.
My communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
There was no classified material that was shared in that
So then
Signal
if there was no
chat.
classified material, share it with the committee.
To be clear, I haven't participated in any Signal group messaging that relates to any classified information at all.
Okay. Director Gabbard.
Senator, I have the same answer. I have not participated in any Signal group chat or any other chat on another app that contained any classified information. Senator, I can attest to the fact that there were no classified or intelligence equities that were included in that chat group at any time.
So,
and I
so
defer,
the attack sequencing and timing and weapons and targets you don't consider should have been classified?
I defer to the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Council on that question.
Now, throughout today's hearing, Democrats slammed Gabbard and Ratcliffe for what they described as incompetent behavior.
I think this is one more example of the kind of sloppy, careless, incompetent behavior, particularly towards classified information.
This sloppiness, this incompetence, this disrespect for our intelligence agencies and the personnel who work for them is entirely unacceptable. It's an embarrassment.
Senator,
you need to do better. You need to do better.
Director Ratcliffe, this was a huge mistake, correct?
no.
A national political...
Hold on.
No, you
Let me
hold
answer.
on. No, Director Ratcliffe, I asked you a yes or no question, and now you hold on. A national political reporter
You can characterize it how you want.
was made privy
The White
to
House has
sensitive
made
information
clear
about
that there
imminent
was an
military
inadvertent
operations against a
mistake,
foreign terrorist
an inadvertent
organization.
mistake of adding a reporter.
And that wasn't a huge
to
mistake?
Lucille.
That wasn't a huge mistake?
Well, I think they characterize
This is
it as
an
a
embarrassment.
mistake.
This is utterly unprofessional. There's been no apology. There has been no recognition of the gravity of this error.
Now, Gabbard and Ratcliffe denied The Atlantic's reporting that the group discussed operational details about the strikes on Yemen. But when Senator Mark Kelly pressed them specifically on what was shared in that text chain, they dodged. Here's some of that exchange.
Was there any mention of a target in Yemen?
I don't remember mention of specific targets.
Was there any mention, Ms. Gabbard, of a weapon or weapons system?
I don't recall specific weapons systems being named.
How about anything about timing? Ms. Gabbard.
I don't recall specific timing.
Any mention of any military unit whatsoever? Mr. Ratcliffe?
Not that I recall.
Ms. Gabbard?
Not that I recall.
Now, Director Ratcliffe did concede that deliberations about any military strikes should be done in a classified setting.
The deliberation between principals in our national security apparatus about whether or not to strike another country, would you consider that to be classified information?
Pre-decisional strike deliberation should be conducted through classified channels.
Joining me now is Vaughn Hillyard at the White House and Courtney Kube at the Pentagon for us today. Vaughn, what more did we hear from the president about this report in the Atlantic today?
Very little concern in terms of the actual events that played out in the last 2 weeks here, defending not only his national security advisor, Michael Waltz, but also Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and the entirety of his national security team. And that goes to include even Vice President Vance. For the president, he did acknowledge, saying that his preference would be to have all communications happening at the most secure levels. That includes inside of the war room, as he put it, with lead wall, lead ceiling, and that he said that there would be a looking into of the use of this Signal app, which is encrypted but is not secure. This is for the president. He attested that in the last 2 months, they have had the most successful 2 months of any administration yet, and that this was a glitch, an effort to try to distract from the progress that the campaign has made on multiple fronts. And I want to let you listen, though, to National Security Michael Waltz, who was seated just a few seats down from the president here at the White House this afternoon, and you can listen to his perspective on this.
I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's the Russia hoax or making up lies about Gold Star families. And this one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room.
Now, what Waltz is acknowledging is the fact that this thread was, in fact, accurate, and it's real. And Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic published parts of it, and other parts, he said, were sensitive material, if not classified information, and did not publish that. And so while we heard from the president and his allies attack Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, there is no dispute over the underlying facts of this case, other than whether this was classified information or not. And we heard from CIA Director Ratcliffe today acknowledge that there were discussions in this text thread about U.S. air crews being sent into hostile airspace. And yet, when the president was asked inside of the White House just a few moments ago, very specifically, why and how he knows that this information is not classified, he said, "Next question, please." And so there is a question here of whether anybody tried to retroactively go back to declassify the information, because right now the sensitivity of the information that it was apparently a part of this text thread and was discussed here on the Signal application runs counter to the suggestions made by Michael Waltz that nobody was put into harm's way by this communication.
Well, Vaughn, let me ask you this. Was there any commentary today in that setting, in the cabinet room there, about accountability or corrective action, anything from the president or the national security advisor about next steps, next actions they would be taking on this?
Right. Michael Waltz said that there would be a legal and security inquiry into this, and the president himself said that they would look into the use of Signal and the best way to communicate about sensitive, confidential, classified information. But again, this goes back to an administration, we should be clear, dating back to the first Trump administration, in which we at NBC News have reported extensively on the mismanagement of classified information and oftentimes the negligence, not only within the White House during his first administration, but of course, what ultimately led to his indictment in 2023 for particularly, there were 300 classified documents that were recovered by the FBI and the Department of Justice from his Mar-a-Lago estate. 31 of those ultimately culminated into federal charges for willful retention of national defense materials.
Right.
And so we have seen here time and again the president who ordered those documents to be sent back to Mar-a-Lago upon taking office earlier this year. We have seen here yet again a pushing aside of the sensitivity of the information.
Well, Courtney, let me bring you in here. From a national security perspective, Courtney, what stood out to you in today's hearing? How much is the onus on Secretary Hegseth now to answer some questions?
Yeah, so one of the things I was really struck by today, Aaron, was how the talk of classified information being on this chat evolved throughout the hearing. So initially it began with there was no classified information on this chat. Later on in the hearing, that sort of evolved into classified intelligence information. So it seemed as if Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, and the CIA Director Ratcliffe both acknowledged that they were saying they didn't have any intelligence information, classified intelligence information. But then when asked about whether some of the information shared by Secretary Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, whether that may have been classified, they kicked that back here to the Pentagon. Now, the Pentagon is not saying anything about that. We're getting zero response to our many questions about the Atlantic story. Secretary Hegseth is traveling in Hawaii right now. We did hear from him very briefly when he landed there late yesterday. The pool reporter with them, traveling with him, asked 2 questions about the Atlantic story, and he immediately launched into a criticism of the reporter of the Atlantic story, Jeffrey Goldberg, calling him a number of names and making allegations against him. And then when the reporter followed up again, he very angrily said, no war plans were shared on this text. Well, that's the distinction that we need to address here, because war plans in the military has a very specific connotation. It could mean an operational plan or an O plan. That is seen as the larger, oftentimes joint plan, a larger war plan, not necessarily information or details about an upcoming mission or operation. And that may be one of the distinctions that we're hearing here when we have people like Secretary Hegseth and others saying that war plans specifically weren't shared on this text chat.
All right, Courtney, Kube for us at the Pentagon, Vaughn Hillyard covering the White House for us today. Thank you both. With me now is retired Lieutenant General Steph Twitty, former Deputy Commander of U.S. European Command and an NBC News military analyst. General, we appreciate you making some time for us today. First, I just want to ask for your reaction to this reporting by The Atlantic.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for letting me be on your show. Let me just lay out something that I think we're missing here. And so we talk about whether it's a war plan or whether or not it's operational plan or what have you. I think we're missing the big picture here. Under any type of operation, if the operation details who, what, when, where, and why, then you are giving away classified data. And so when you look at the text, if it contains those elements, then we should ask the question, why are we sending it over a not approved government communications device? And so if you go back and look at it, whether it's a war plans or whether it's attack plans where we're getting ready to conduct an imminent attack, if it contains those elements, should be number one, under SIPR, that's where we do our secret, or in a SCIF, that's where we go for our classified briefings, somewhere there is DOD cleared, or if we're gonna talk at the higher level, top secret level, then that is called JWITS. And oh, by the way, we also have approved classified cell phones that you can use to talk via cell phone or to text or communicate with. And from my understanding, those devices were not used as well.
Well, I want to play an exchange from the hearing on Capitol Hill today and then ask you about this on the other side. Watch this.
With respect to the assertions and the allegations that there was strike packages or targeting information or things that relate to DOD, as I've pointed out, the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for determining whether something's classified or not. And as I've understood from media reports, the Secretary of Defense has said the information was not classified.
Are you aware that the Secretary of Defense declassified this information prior to the Code?
I'm not.
So I'd like to ask you to explain what original classification authority means and whether that makes it okay for the Secretary of Defense to discuss classified information on an unsecure platform like this.
Well, it absolutely is a security breach when you're talking on an unsecure phone. So if you think about this, there are a couple of things here that must occur. Number one, we have sources and methods. So the targets that they're talking about, we're able to collect by some means, whether it be signal intelligence, whether it be geo intelligence, or whether it be human intelligence. Whenever we communicate in an unclassified way like this, we put our sources and methods in harm's way. They become compromised. And so we have Americans on the ground or informants on the ground that's providing us this information, and it gets leaked out, then they could be at harm's way. And so that's why it's critical that we stay in the secure realm so we don't put our military folks that are conducting the operations in harm's way, but also our sources and methods in harm's way.
So what do you think accountability looks like for an incident like this?
Well, when you're in the military, the accountability is pretty strict. First of all, you would get relieved for something like this, no doubt, because it is a security breach. And second, UCMJ would probably come into action on something like this for someone in the military. But they definitely would get their security clearance pulled from them. They probably would get relieved. And then we would also look at perhaps UCMJ.
All right. Retired Army Lieutenant General Steph Twitty, we appreciate your time and expertise on this today. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.